How are we doing today, Mike?
Doing great, Frank. Great to see you.
Same here.
Welcome back to Perspective Shift, where we dive into all things perspective.
Yes, and we have to hold our breath when we dive in.
I love it. I love it. What are we going to be jumping into today, Frank?
Well, we'll continue down the road with the talk about controlling our breath to get into different frequencies, what we call preferential frequencies, or actually frequencies that we want to explore.
Frequencies of abundance. Because you can tell, you can feel a feeling.
Yeah, and all frequencies are abundance. It's just that as you go higher to another level, you're experiencing more vigoration, right? It doesn't mean that if you go down to other frequencies, the fear isn't the frequency per se. It's getting stuck there. That's really what people are fearing. It's being stuck somewhere. And when you're stuck somewhere, you're lacking freedom. So the ability to go to any frequency, any radio station you want to, alleviates the idea of imprisonment. So really want to be free of the things that are burdening. It's not that we don't want to work, but we want to be free to do what we want. Mm-hmm. And people think, well, the more, if I can go on vacation, I can do all this stuff, I'll feel better. And that's really not the truth empirically. It's how you feel that sets you free. And then, you might be on vacation, or you might end up working 12 hours that day because you actually feel the freedom, and freedom actually creates more of an energy field in the body. And whatever you're doing, why would you stop doing it if you like doing it?
That's it.
There's always going to be this natural, the weather always changes. So there's going to be a natural point where you get to a crossroads where you're going to want to choose left or right. And as you go through the work that Mike and I are talking about, whether you make a right or left, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
It's just showing you that this path that you were heading in that direction is come to an end. So be it.
But that's a relief. There's something relieving about knowing that. Because I remember figuring that out, being like, it doesn't matter what path I take in this moment.
No, if you fully invest yourself into that whether you make a right or left, is where the value comes in. But if you make a right thinking, I should have made a left, it wasn't the right that made you crash into a tree or hit the pothole that you hadn't seen. It was looking over your shoulder at, maybe I should have gone left. You get distracted by something, by the act of thinking. Mm-hmm. So when we start to think, it disturbs us, because it's like watching a ping pong going off in your head. You're not directly focused. All of a sudden, you're not in homeostasis. You're fighting yourself. A thought is not meant to fight. A thought is meant to enact. But thinking about it is kind of like tug of war, trying to get like, no, let's do it this way, let's do it that way. And in the interim, your energy is not in the place in where you want to listen to that music. In other words, you're at the wrong radio station. It's not that the music that's playing is bad. It's not what you want.
Yeah.
And that's, or prefer at the moment, or you've been led to. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the breathing. We're going to go over that again. We're going to keep going over it to show us how to get to these higher levels, to where you start to understand this concept of non-duality, but you're still experiencing the illusion of duality and having fun with it. Just like when you go to a movie, even if the movie's based on a true story, it's just a movie. You're just watching a modulation of pixels on the screen, but there's really nothing there. It just dissipates. But you can actually have a fun interaction with it. And that's what we're talking about, the illusion of the world, and we get caught up in it.
We're always trying to control the world outside of us.
Yeah, rather than control
fix things outside of us.
Yeah, rather than controlling our inner nervous system, if you want to put it from that scientific point, you don't even need to look at it that way. But when we actually stop breathing, and Mike and I were sharing these certain breath works that we do a lot, but now I'm going to go into more nuance type of stuff, like where I could, like I was thinking about this when I breathe, like in my nose. If you give your attention to your lower part of your nostril, the oxygen comes in this way and swirls up and goes in. But if you give your attention to your upper, it's like you can move the oxygen to different parts of your nose.
Yeah,
that's a nuance. Oxygen's still getting to the body, but before I was really getting intricate with it, I didn't notice I can do that. I could okay, if I put my, anyone out there, listen, put your attention to the lower part of your nostril when you breathe in. it comes in and scoops up, then goes into canal. If you do it to the top, you feel it throughout. It's where I give my attention, the oxygen goes. Or it's not that the oxygen is, when I'm giving attention to my upper nostril, it's not hitting my lower nostril. It's my attention is the field of awareness. Yeah. So what am I giving my attention to? Well, a lot of us are giving attention to what we don't want to happen. And even though 99% of times it doesn't happen, it's still keeping you from what it is you want to experience. And that's the imprisonment. Yeah. A lot of people are in prison that hadn't done anything wrong.
Well, it's a way that we, I don't know, it's like we're never taught where to put the focus. And so I feel like that plays a big role in why we only focus on the things that scare us or the things that make us afraid, is we weren't taught where energy flows, where attention goes, is where energy flows.
And the thing is, we are taught in a very esoteric way. And what I mean is, like,
we have to learn it.
You have to experience it. Mm-hmm. So, like, this argument's sake, say the history of the world is an energy field. And, if you go back like 2,000 years ago, the energy field was lower. Some will say maybe it was higher and then it dipped down throughout cycles, right? But just say for argument's sake, it was lower. And then everyone was at that level. And if somebody just rose slightly out of it, they were in trouble. So, like, Jesus was in trouble because he rose out of that, right? So then the next person comes along and is like, okay, I want to rise to that level, but I don't want to rise too high to where I'm in trouble because, I want to help my fellow man, so to speak. And I certainly don't want to end my experience, right, at a younger age. So we play this game, but I think right now we're in this brilliant point right now where you get to tell the energy field is changing. And I could say that's why I'm aware of it, because it's changing. Right? It's not that I'm doing anything miraculous throughout my life. It's not that. It's just I don't know why I woke up one day and started looking at things differently and continued on that path. It's almost like if you know something was good for you, you kept doing it and kept adding to it. You just did that. So maybe my fortune was in that, but it wasn't like, oh, I struggled and did that. No, my struggling is what kept me down. Now, and I believe that the energy is rising to where I stepped into it, and the old way was just too heavy for me to handle. So I let go of it. And periodically throughout in the beginning, I'm like, should I have let go of that? And I'm like, yeah. It wasn't serving you. And even whatever you let go is still able to grab onto, and you keep grabbing onto. And every time I grabbed onto that old belief, it was just heavier and heavier. Then at one point, I'm like, why do I keep doing that? Yeah. So now I don't focus on what it is I don't like. I focus on the direction I want to move in and allow the rest to fall away. So when we start doing this breath work and deep breathing and getting yourself to a higher level, then from there, like say you take 15 minutes in the morning to do that, all right? Then you go into what we call a meditative state, to where you feel the nuances and thoughts will come in. And just watch the thought pass by. One of the tricks I do, if like thoughts come in, I don't care if it's good or not. I want to be present. So if a thought's coming in, I'm out of the like if I'm having a conversation with someone, I'm not thinking. I'm responding based on what they're talking about. But if I do get into thinking like, oh, this person won't shut up and or this and that, all of a sudden I am no longer in the conversation, and then I'm hijacked from being that distracted. Moment. And maybe I'll blame it on the person for not talking about stuff I'm interested in. But no. I was hijacked, so I don't want to take the blame of being hijacked and grabbing onto this other thing when I wasn't here. So when I actually start to settle, like just breathe in like 1, 2, out, 3, 4, 5. Within 5 seconds, I cease to think, have anything. If I do that like several times a day, multiple times a day, just in increments, if I could just breathe in for like 5 seconds, I'm breathing in and then out. Breathing in 2, out 3, that's equal in 5 seconds. And just give my attention to it, I cease to think. Yeah. I'm just being. And it's such a relief. I don't need, the meditation I do for 15, 20 minutes is great. There's different nuances there. But when I could take that thing with me throughout the day, and I could cease from thinking.
Now we're playing with fire.
Yeah, I level up. All of a sudden, that thought that I was grabbing onto is already gone. And then because I'm at a higher level, the thoughts are, let's say, more efficient. Just kind of like if I'm flying in an airplane and to do like, say I don't know, like 3,000 feet off the ground in an airplane, and I'm doing 500 miles an hour. The amount of fuel it takes at 3,000 feet above the ground to fly an airplane at 500 miles an hour is a lot more energy than it would be if it was at 32,000 feet. Because the higher you go, the less oxygen molecules, less resistance. So the plane that's moving at 500 miles at 32,000 feet is actually moving more efficiently. So that's what we're talking about. We're trying to get into the ethers where our systems are more efficient. Down here, like, okay, I'm trying to do 500 miles an hour, but I keep running out of fuel and it keeps heating up. Well, if you go up top, if you go to 32,000 feet or what have you, there's less friction with the oxygen molecules, less heat being produced, less resistance, all this stuff. So as we start to breathe out through that day, we're drifting up where there's less resistance of thought.
Yeah.
So there's less thought up here. And once you get above the clouds, you look up, there are no clouds. You have to look down to see the clouds. So it gives you a perspective, like where we're going with the breath. All right? We're trying to get out of the realm of survival mode, the 7 natural needs. Those are fundamental foundations, right? We got to work on those, right? So I still do the breath work every day, but now I do a complete nuance. It's completely different than just kind of making me feel good. I wake up feeling good.
Yeah.
Now it's what? Okay, what other frequency of good feeling can I enter into? And that offers up new information. And also, too, I come to understand that I have a guidance system, whether you call it spirits or angels or whatever you call it, that is leading me to a path that I came here to experience. It knows better than I do, just like the GPS knows how to get me to where I'm going. And the audible attribute that's in my car will say, make a right. That's all it knows. And yes, because I learned what a right-hand turn was in kindergarten or whatever, put that ribbon around your wrist, right? I already know that information. I should respond to it. But the GPS, which is the higher mind or the information coming from above, knows how to get you there. And based on how we are, it will divulge information one step at a time, depending on where you are. So I don't question where I am. I just work on letting go of holding on to being stuck in this position where I was at. Not where I was at, so to speak, was bad. It's just I've outgrown it.
It no longer serves you.
It no longer serves me. So I let go. So I don't let go and condemn it. I let go and appreciate it and thank it. And then I move to another level. Because this level here, I then want to alleviate from that. And then you get to this mastery point where it doesn't matter where you are. But if flying a plane at 500 miles an hour at 3,000 feet is probably exhilarating for the pilot because you could still see the earth. So there's exhilaration. It's like, yeah, but it's inefficient. I'm like, inefficient fuel-wise, but it adds an exhilaration. So, I don't know what the law is about flying a plane at 500 miles an hour at 3,000 feet. But nonetheless, you could see the point I'm trying to make. Like a fighter pilot comes and flies really fast, low to the ground. There's exhilaration, but it's not efficient. But he knows that, and they're choosing to do that from a different vantage point. So there's nothing wrong with that.
And that's like us entering the game.
Yeah.
Us entering and playing the game.
Yeah, it's understanding what these different fields of energy provide, where if you don't... where we get stuck is we think we're stuck here. Correct. This is all I can do.
Only survival mode.
That's it.
That fight or flight state.
And we're still working trying to maintain the several natural needs. We're trying to really work on those. And so that's something I always work on because it becomes more of a nuance. So my breath work, obviously I still drink water. I love getting great sleep. Eating, that's a fuel for my body. I'm at a point right now I don't eat as much, and then relationship. I mean, shelter. Yeah, my inhabitants it's like it's really nice. And it's nice to me. It might be not nice to somebody else. I don't know. And that keeps changing, especially with my wife. Every season, the inside of my house looks different. It changes, yeah.
I like that. It's
no,
nice.
it does, yeah. Like
I like that.
Yeah,
when I come over, it's fun.
It's funny.
I like seeing
it
the
was
fall
like last week with the refrigerator, right?
Exactly.
She what the hell they call it?
It was, I want to say staging, but it wasn't staging. But it was something like that. There was a phrase for it.
Scaping or something.
Yeah, scaping. Yeah,
fridge scaping. If anyone ever heard this, please don't. It's just crazy.
It's just crazy.
So I just like, honey, you need to go back to work. She was off for like 2 weeks.
You got a little too much free time.
It was like day 3. I came home and she's like, look what I did to the refrigerator. There was a vase in there with flowers. It was staged.
It was pretty, yeah.
And staged. I'm like, I don't know where to put my food. I'm like this, put them in the bins. I don't want, So I know, like when I open the refrigerator, I don't know what to do anymore. I'm like, hon, can you please help me out here? Because I don't want to ruin it. Like, it's a staged refrigerator, that's why they have doors on them. But anyway,
to hide what's inside.
Yeah. But that's the natural order of things to change, and that's okay, because we want. And even if you never change the inside of your house, you can still look at it differently every day. You still appreciate every day.
I liked how you said, and that's okay. That's how we need to look at every situation.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
It is okay.
What just happened, whatever you just got, pushed up against, whatever overwhelming feeling, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's our, we are the ones that manufacture these feelings into something so physical, so real, that's so drowning and makes us feel like we're being swallowed. And we buy into it and we get sucked deeper. It's like getting pulled underneath by the wave and getting pulled in to the current.
Yeah. I think it's like going back to the idea of like, you have these, guides, however you want to label them, they're always direct you in the route in which you came to. So it's always positive. Now, it's not their fault that I grabbed onto a belief that is creating resistance, right? That's what's happening. So if I was trying to breathe, but I put duct tape over my mouth, I can still breathe, but it makes it a lot more difficult. Well, why did I put duct tape on my mouth? Because I bought into a belief that says I have to do that, right? And then all of a sudden you pull the duct tape. I'm like, I could breathe so much better. I'm like, yeah, because you got rid of the resistance, all right? So understanding, and that's why sometimes I'm not here to get rid of beliefs per se, but is the belief in direct conjunction with the direction in which you feel like you're being pulled? And if it is, you're not going to even notice it. It's going to enhance it. But if the belief is fighting against it, and how do you know that? I'm like, when you start hitting resistance, you have to let go of the belief. You have to get to a higher altitude in order to do that, right? So the airplane's feeling resistance, turbulence, or what have you. Well, as it climbs to 30,000 feet, it's pretty smooth. That's why they fly there, not at 3,000 feet. There's just too much turbulence and resistance. It'd be a very uncomfortable commercial flight if you did that. People are like, I'm like, yeah. You go all the way up at 30,000 feet, you don't notice it. So we're here to get to a higher level, and in order to do that, we have to let go of the belief that I have to fly at 3,000 feet opposed to 30,000. Yeah. All right. And how high can we fly? Because the further we actually, if you step out of the Earth's atmosphere, the gravitational pull is no longer there based on the mass of field, right? And that's the true freedom. But it's knowing it's there, not necessarily having to get there, that creates the freedom in my mind. Because for some reason, I'm still dealing with gravity, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. But if I didn't think that it was possible for me to get into the ethers where I was lighter, that's the problem. If someone found out they could not get out of prison, so to speak, that would be more detrimental than someone that says like, in 20 years I'll be out. At least, 20 years I'll have a life. Right? And I'm just using metaphorically because, there have been people that were in prison that never knew they were going to get out, but they let go of it and they lived a very peaceful life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they were more free in their mind than most people are in the outside world with all the money and stuff like that, because they're not attached to the thing. All right. But trust me, I'm sure it doesn't happen a lot because if it did, everyone would be in prison meditating. Right. So here with the breath work, use it to get these higher levels, get out of the survival states, and then get into the collective collaboration, into the nuances of why you're here, so to speak, and then drift away. And if you do fall into survival, you know how to get out of it. Not to, like, if I'm in the basement talking about the basement or putting up posters on the basement, it augments the walls, but it doesn't change the basement. But the basement's needed. It's the foundation of the very building in which we want to stand. Mm-hmm. But when I understand the whole structure of the building, where do I want to be? You know? Well, what do you want to do that? What do you want to experience there? And learn how to get there. Learn how to go there. And the building I'm in is still not finished construction. So what I mean is there are higher frequencies that I'm working on and playing with because I'm still alive.
That's it.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean the one I was in 5 years ago was bad. I might have struggled in it because I didn't know I can get off that floor, so to speak, and I was stuck on that, and I realized there's an elevator or a stairway I didn't realize can free me from that floor. Once you know there's an exit, you feel calm, and you don't necessarily need to leave the building. Like if you were in a room, say you got locked in a room, and you looked around, you couldn't find a door, right? And you start panicking, and you've only been there for 5 minutes. Why? Because there's no way out. You feel that way, so you start freaking out, so you try to get out. But if you walk into a room, and there's doors everywhere, windows, whatever, like you could stay there all day. Mm-hmm. What was the difference? The ability to exit, come and go as you want, created the anxiety. Not the room. The space was the same size, right? But the fact I couldn't get out. Because even if you were in a cube, you can see out into the outside world, but there was no door, you would freak out. Mm-hmm. The difference was the ability to move in and out of that space allows me to stay in that space. And the ability for me to change frequencies, not because it's better or greater, it's because the ability that I can do so is everything. And the first way I know is through breath. When I change and I breathe, everyone knows they go to the gym, they feel better. It's because of the oxygen level. You have to breathe more when you're doing any type of workout other than just sitting at a computer.
And when we're in that survival state, you'll notice that your breathing becomes augmented. That's one of the first signs.
Yeah, because you think you're in a room without a door.
Mm-hmm. I just have noticed that, it's a physical way for me to measure, kind of where I'm feeling or where I'm at. When I feel that shallow breath coming or that heightened, quick breath coming, that's a telltale sign to me, knowing how the nervous system works. Okay, let's pull back here. Yeah. I find myself getting riled up. I find myself, really playing the character. I find myself deep in this, situation. And what does that do? It makes it more real. It solidifies it.
Yeah.
It feels like you can't breathe. You can't get out. We've all been there, guys. Like these feelings, it's not that they're not real. It's you're making them more and more real, with every, thought affirming, how bad that situation is, or every, negative thought about what now could happen. The mind is wild. And when you're not in control of it, oh my gosh, it's going to run you up the wall.
Yeah, when the mind disturbs the body, like the heart, and you start to breathe, the mind then goes into a spin. So trying to extract information out of a spin is impossible. That's going to be beneficial to you. That's why, it's funny too, like Daryl Anka, who's Bashar. I got to listen to an interview with him. It was a really good interview that was done. It was, I forgot the kid's name. I should know this, but he has a podcast, and he's a younger kid, and he was asking Daryl Anka questions I've never heard him being asked. It was really good. And the first thing he said is like, what is your joy and excitement? Because Bashar is always like, follow your passion as far as you can with zero insistence on the outcome. And when you actually follow that formula, life is really amazing. And he said, escape rooms. So I've never done an escape room, but they're becoming more popular and
I
big.
just did one not too long ago with Kayla.
Yeah, so when you think about escape room, you don't know how to get out. And if you start panicking, and again, I know this about it, I have never done it. You have to collaborate with everyone in the room and remain calm, because if no one gets out, I mean, it's not like if one person gets out, everyone gets out.
Yep.
It's the way it works. So when we look at society right now, I'm like, the responsibility I feel I have is remaining calm, because I don't want to contribute to the wars. And so I could even take it upon myself if I get upset and start freaking out and falling into the lower
trauma.
Yeah. All of a sudden, I take responsibility for these wars happening. And I don't mean indirectly, I mean directly. That's how much we start to realize how much energy we have. But if I remain in peace, I want to contribute to these things ending. All right? But every human being, all 8 billion of us, have this power on this planet. So maybe this is why these escape rooms are coming up. Because how can we work together to get out of this? We're not now working against each other, like in these survival TV shows, where actually it's funny, in the survival shows, they always find alliances. But at some point, you have to cut the alliance. But I'm like, that's not really how life works. In order for me to become successful, I don't need to get all these people that are running my business with me. And once I get to the pinnacle of success, I kill them all. Yeah. Like, it doesn't work that way, because the next day the business collapses. I'm like, actually, I want to put them ahead of me, or at the same level at least. They're collaborative. I may be the main focus of my business, but I am not the king of it, and as I look at it as main focus, I actually want to be holding the ladder for everyone to climb, not be at the top of the ladder. And all of a sudden, I realize, and I think the people that work for me feel that way. I don't feel like their boss. They look to me for direction, and I'm like, that's why I don't panic ever. At least in front of them.
Yeah, right.
I might do it in the car when I'm driving home. But then I stop breathing and I start laughing at the panic that came up. So I've trained myself never to, kind of like Jocko. Good. And you have that, and all of a sudden I could see the calmness, like, well, if he's okay, I'm going to be okay.
Yep.
And I realized that is my responsibility, to stay calm. When I do that, I notice the difference. And one of the ways I do it, I'm like, I don't waste time anymore. I love doing my breath work in the morning. I love doing the nuances. I love having these discussions with people to whatever level they are. I can have the same discussion that Mike and I have, and I might use different verbiage. I don't want to make anyone comfortable. But most of my clients, not just obviously my coaching clients, but the clients in my salon come in and they start to bring up these topics. I don't force them on them. And all of a sudden we start talking about it. And then other people in the salon are learning these concepts that I've learned to people like Neville Goddard, Bashar, or Abraham, all these people that came into my life, and now I'm just sharing them, and I'm sharing them to listen to them, like go right to the horse. I'm just the echo of that with my own experience involved in it. And all of a sudden you start to share this stuff, and life is an escape room. And we're all trying to get to a higher level, trying to get out of this room called the war, called hate, called division. All right? I'm not knocking it. Because if I condemn it, I'm stuck in it. War served a purpose to show us what peace really can feel like. Right? If we grew up, we've only experienced peace. And I'm only saying this from the experience we had. Would we know what peace really was? All right? But I think we had enough tyrants and wars in our life to where we don't need, okay, I'm done with this lesson.
And that's where we're at. That's why we're seeing.
Yeah, I think most of us are there.
Some
aren't, and that's okay. They're still playing that game, but they're the catalyst then for me to elevate higher, not to condemn them, but to look at them like, okay, that's the catalyst. I want to get up to 30,000 feet so the plane can run more efficiently because I'm aware it can, and that's it. But I don't knock the people that are flying at 3,000 feet either. They won't interfere with my life. But if I go down to 3,000 feet and try to convince them it's better up there and wonder why I crashed into the mountain, whose fault is that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't condemn any level because I went through all those levels. And those levels for me, what we considered fear or anxiety, all were simple catalysts because I could not stay there. My ship would have burnt out. The plane would have fell apart if I stayed at that level. So
that's why we feel so tired when we're living in that level.
Oh, you're exhausted.
What I mean? You're exhausted because
it's so much energy to get to chop the wood,
the
and gather
anger,
the water.
The anger, the victimhood. This shouldn't have happened if it only happened this way. The finger pointing.
Yeah,
it is exhausting.
It is. Yeah. So when you're chopping the wood and gathering the water at that level, it's a chore. It's a flipping all day job. At these higher levels, I'm like, this is the greatest meditation I've ever had. Mm-hmm. And you're still chopping the wood, gathering the water.
Nothing's changed except the way you're perceiving it.
Yeah. Therefore, everything has changed.
Exactly.
In that sense. So the breath work that Mike and I have been talking about over the last several podcasts, and we'll continue to talk about in different nuances, is to get you to these higher levels to experience it, not to knock the lower ones. It's to go up here. And as we do that, we create a new baseline. It's never going to end. But the higher levels, you can see that. And then all of a sudden, you know when to make the right or left. And then you get to a point where you get these higher levels. Whether you make the right or left, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? If you get to one and you're drawn to the right, do it. If you're drawn to the left, do it. If you're drawn to both of them, flip a quarter. Mm-hmm. It won't matter. It won't matter whether you have the hamburger or pizza. They're both going to fill you and satisfy you. And tomorrow you could have the pizza if you chose the hamburger taste, so to speak. It doesn't matter. You don't eat the hamburger and I'm satisfied. I'm like, should have had the pizza. That's just the weirdest thing. Unless you hated the hamburger, right? But no, you chose, if you like hamburgers and you like pizza, what's the difference? Hey, we're out of pizza, so what?
When you're flying at that higher level too, it feels so good that you don't want to ever drop back down. And when you do drop back down, you now know how, using the breath, to get back up. And that's the exciting part about this journey is you start to realize that this survival state that I've been in for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, I don't have to remain in this state. There's another way to feel. There is a much freer, lighter feeling. And as you begin to, let go, and as you begin to fly, if you will, on this new path, new opportunities open. Things happen that support you staying at this higher vibration that before you were unaware of, or you discounted, or you thought wouldn't work. And so it allows you to begin to build this momentum to maintain this higher level, this higher, viewpoint, this greater view, if you will. And I think that's important for people because a lot of people, when you're flying so low and you feel like, it's the end of the world, it's just because you haven't elevated.
Yeah.
And you haven't felt that feeling of what it's like, to cut that, 1,000-pound sack off of your back.
Yeah.
And that's why, these basic fundamentals that Frank and I discuss, these 7 laws, these 7 states and needs, breath work, these fundamentals, these are what set you up to experience that feeling, to know there's more than just survival. Because a lot of people just think they're survival.
Yeah, if I just sat around and just started breathing and didn't drink water and certainly didn't get sleep, So these all add into it. But the breath when you actually breathe a lot, you actually naturally want to drink more water. And when you're breathing a lot, drinking more water, you hydrate your body so the electricity and the magnetism is going conductive a lot better. At nighttime, when you start doing that, your serotonin easily falls into and converts into melatonin. So then sleep becomes easier. Mm-hmm. And then if you sleep really well and, you wake up really good, it's easier to choose the type of foods that would be more efficient for your body. And if you do that, all of a sudden now your body's strong and fit. You can do something out there, produce the world where you can actually now create an environment to build a house or whatever. And then you do all that stuff. Now all of a sudden people want to hang out with you. There's a relationship. All of a sudden, you see how this keeps going? going, and you go into that. Now you're in this creative expression place.
Well, and a lot of people too think that like if you have money that you are not in survival, and that couldn't be further from the truth. And we can see this in our celebrities, we can see this in public figures, where they're in so much pain, some of these people.
Yeah.
And they have some of the most abundance in physical monetary means, that we can fathom.
Yep.
And we can see the pain, in a lot of them. And that's what I've realized on my journey is I'm like, whoa. Like I thought my path was hard. Talk about like feeling this same way, but having a shitload of money and being like, what the fuck am I bitching about? Like that's an even more stuck feeling. Where do I go from here? Like talk about quicksand. You have all the money in the world and you still hate existence.
Yeah. Like, at least if you're
heavy.
Poor and still in the lower echelon of the understanding, you have an excuse why things aren't working out. But when you're rich and you have everything and you still feel miserable, you can't...
Talk about feeling stuck.
Well, yeah, because you can't no longer use the outer world to distract yourself. It no longer works. Because the outer world will distract you momentarily. Mm-hmm. And so when it distracts you from a thought, you feel good and you think, oh, it was buying that new car. And I'm like, no, it was the distraction because, a week later you have buyer's regret or remorse, whatever you want to call it. And now you keep giving the worth to the outside world. I'm like, yeah, the beach never made me happy. I just happened to be at the beach when happiness overcame me. And because I took a snapshot of it, it must have been the beach is the wrong way to look at it. Mm-hmm. No, it starts with the zero. It starts with the energy. And then the outer world is expressed at the beach. But I could also be happy sitting in a classroom. I could also be happy in the mountains. I could be happy in the snow. These have nothing to do. Now, the physical body can only withstand certain temperatures or whatever. I get that. But I'm talking my psyche. It's like I jump into cold water is exhilarating, but my physical body, well, how long can it sustain? Well, how long I want to push myself into it, all right? But that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is there is no real set scenario where I'm happier. Now, I might be more drawn to the beach, say, for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. But I still don't say that is what makes me happy. I might be drawn to a preference, but it doesn't make that preference because any moment that could change. Mm-hmm. And if I say, man, what's going on with me? I'm like, first 40 years of my life, I loved going to Hawaii, and now I just like this must be something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe that's the fork in the road. Maybe you're meant to go to the mountains. I don't know. But if you think it should continue that way, and then I'm something wrong with me, so I go to a psychologist and sitting on, whatever. The last 3 times I went to Hawaii, I just didn't enjoy myself. And, now you're trying to blame. It's like, oh, maybe things have changed there. And all of a sudden you come up with these crazy stories, and it's like, no. Like, I understand what my preferences are in the moment, but I don't hold tightly to them. Why? Because in the next moment, my wife might have a different preference that I have to enjoy.
But that's exactly it.
Yeah.
We don't know. And that's okay.
But I know in the moment. Listen, when the GPS says make right-hand turn, I know what a right-hand turn is. I'm receiving that information. I know how to utilize that information and put it to action. I don't think, why am I making a right, not a left? Because I would pass by the road I had to make the right.
You develop a certain level of trust and knowing where it's like, hey, whatever way this works out, this is working out for me.
Yeah, I love that you said that. So this doesn't happen as much anymore, but I remember when I first started flying in an airplane. And I didn't trust the plane was going to make it there until we hit the 30,000 feet and it was steady. When it was taking off, I'm like, we're going to die. We can crash. It zoomed down, blow up. But when I'm up in the air, my trust, I forgot we were flying.
Yeah.
So in this taking off, you question it, right? But once you get to here, it's like it's easy to trust, but now...
And the same thing in the analogy we're describing. Yeah. At first, when you're like, getting out of survival, you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to fall flat on my face. I'm an idiot. I'm going to look stupid. Yeah. But you keep going, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, that worked out.
It worked out, yeah. You push through.
Holy shit, there must be a little something here.
And then every time the plane takes off, and I feel the resistance, the gravitational pull trying to get up to 30,000 feet, I trust that is part and parcel, so I don't even worry then.
Well, and that same feeling you're talking about, that same takeoff feeling where your stomach drops, etc. That's the feeling, guys, when you get locked up in fear about making the next move, about is this going to work out?
Yeah.
Shit, I just lost my job. How am I going to provide? Not thinking that, oh, if I didn't lose this job, I wouldn't have this amazing opportunity that I'm going to stumble upon here in the next 3 days. Yeah. Whatever.
But even losing the job and creating that little bit of fear, well, that creates consciousness too. So now you could utilize the fear as your friend, not like you shouldn't be scared. So, yeah, when a plane's taking off, to get to the optimum speed, which is around 500 miles an hour, at 30,000 feet, it's got to go through a resistance of the oxygen molecules that are more dense, closer to the planet. That's it. But what we do is think about like the first airplanes that were built. They couldn't go 30,000 feet. They would have fell apart. So the resistance people dealt with, and it was appropriate then. Well, now, like one day you'll be at zoom, you won't even have resistance.
Yeah, it's going to be very easy.
Yeah, it'll be less resistance, right? And even the airplanes built now aren't, they're very, especially getting to the big ones. Yeah, you don't notice the resistance as much. So as we get to these higher levels in humanity, the resistance becomes a joyous thing, not a problem, right? Because if there was no resistance, no friction in and of itself, you would have no experience. It's just that you don't want something pulling you in the opposite direction or slowing you down where it's completely, like in other words, in order for a plane to take off of the ground, it has to be at a certain speed. Well, say it's 120 miles an hour to lift off the ground. I'm not even sure, whatever. And you're like, yeah, let's just do 50. I'm like, well, good luck getting off the ground with that.
Exactly.
So you need a certain amount of energy to do that, and then get to a point where the energy isn't needed anymore. And this is how everything can be fragmented down and understanding the fractals of how things work. I'm like, yeah, so the higher we get, yeah, there's a different level of resistance, but now this resistance is working for me, not overwhelming me. Because if it's overwhelming me, I know it should be easier. It's like, well, yeah, you've experienced here, but you're still trying to fly here. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, well, you're flying here. You want to be flying here. Because everyone goes up, like I was at the beach and I felt good. I'm like, yeah, I need to get to the beach. Why? I'm like, last time I was at the beach, I felt good. And I'm like, yeah, it really wasn't the beach. It was you somehow weren't thinking. And next thing you know, or you went into the water, you were drawn to it, you went swimming and had a great day. It was because you weren't thinking. You had a response to go into the water or sit and read a book and there was nothing pulling at you. And what only pulls at you is thought. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh, it must have been the beach. I'm like, no, you just happened to be at the beach, and the beach was an expression of that. You have to be able to take it to the cubicle of your work. If you can't, then you'll be in prison. Doesn't mean you stay in the cubicle. You'll find your way out. But if you can find peace, and they're like, well, how? I'm like, well, think about how you felt at the beach in your cubicle. That's why people put pictures of the beach in their cubicle and they look at it. I'm like, I feel good. I'm like, well, you're not at the beach. How did you feel good? I distracted myself from thinking. Well, when you're breathing, especially type of breath works we do, you can't think because you're too busy. Like the one we did today, me and Mike, was pretty
deep breathing.
Deep breathing. Like the thoughts couldn't enter into my head.
Correct.
They couldn't. They would come in. I'm like, I don't have time for that shit. I'm trying to breathe.
It's kind of why I like the deep breathing.
Yeah. But then we get to a level where a thought comes in and just a simple, I can get rid of it now. It's like I'm flying at 30,000 feet and there's very little turbulence up here. Like, okay. So I don't need to keep breathing deep. But the deep breathing got me off the ground. Now, so maybe that's why I do deep breathing in the morning. So throughout the day, I don't have to seem weird in front of people. But like, hold on. It's like, what the hell is going on?
I still do that at lunch.
Yeah.
I'll take a break and I'll do an 8-10 minute deep breathing.
Yeah. And I seldom ever get a lunch break where what I do, like I go in the back and I'll eat while I'm getting color or something ready. But throughout when I'm working, I have to consciously. So when a client's talking, I'm listening by breathing in 1, 2, 3, 4, out 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll do that for 3, and I forget I'm doing it. I'll go back to it. I'll make it 4. But what I noticed too is I listen better. I'm more attentive to them rather than thinking like, I don't feel good. Oh, I didn't.
What do I have to do after this?
I didn't eat yet. Oh. And then the client's like, so you know what I'm saying? I'm like, huh? Like,
that happens to all of us. We can all relate to that.
But when I'm breathing and feeling good, I feel good. So therefore, my belief that I need more food or I need a break isn't coming up in my head. And all of a sudden, at the end of the day, after working 10, 12-hour day, I'm like, yeah, I can go to the gym right now if I need to, now it's a choice I can do. Not that I have to or should.
And it's because we haven't exhausted and wasted all of this energy throughout the day thinking, and giving into this idea of, oh, this is so draining. Like, guys, the self-hatred, the self-loathing, the suffering, the pain, this shouldn't be happening. That is sucking the life out of you, sucking it out of you. The energy that is consumed with that is so high, and that's the issue. Is you are so drained.
Yep. So when you're feeling that tiredness, take it back to the breath or whatever way you can in the moment which you're in. So obviously, if you're at work, just start breathing in and out your nose. If there's no one else around, or if there's other people around, that you don't mind looking eccentric, do it. Because there is nothing more important than how you feel in a frequency. Nothing. All right? You think money's important? You wouldn't have money if you weren't feeling good. All right? So, yeah, the person who amassed several $1 million at some point was doing it right, but maybe they didn't know how they did it. So then they start to lose the money or lose their mind. It's because it happens to every one of us. What it is, we're learning how to actually know how it works. Like if I got into a car, like what we're talking about is starting the car. But what's the purpose of the car? It's to get us around town faster than walking or riding a bicycle, right? So it's a mode of transportation to get me quicker to a place and very comfortable. It doesn't matter what the environment is. I got air conditioning. I got, a roof over. I got windows. I'm sheltered by my car as I'm driving down the road, so I don't even notice the oxygen or trees or, bugs flying in my head. I don't know any of that stuff, right? But if I didn't know how to start the damn thing, and breath work is starting it, then driving around town is what we're doing. So if you can't even breathe properly, it's like I can't find the keys to my car. Or some people don't even know there is a way of starting this car. So what they end up doing is they push it. So someone gets in there and steers it, and the other person pushes it. Think about it. That's how we're living our life.
It's very tiring.
We're pushing the very vehicle in which we're driving. Yeah, what happens is we get a hill. The problem with hills is there's another hill on the other side in the opposite direction. Because you have to go home.
That's usually how it works.
Oh, that was good. I'm like, yeah, but now we have to get home. Fuck, I'm like, that hill that we drove down, we have to now climb up. I'm like, oh, shit. And then someone comes along and says, you see that button right there? Push it. Boom. Okay. Wow, what the hell was that? It's called the engine.
You just turned it on.
The nervous system. And then you turned it on, and it's like, wow, yeah, just, you see that thing over there? Just push it. That upregulates the nervous system. And when you put it into the D, you see that D right there? Hit that. And you do that. I'm like, oh my God. And then you tell the person, get in the car. You don't need to push anymore.
Let me show you how these brakes work.
Why would we push it all along, right? It's like, yeah. And, when you were a kid, you had go-karts that had no motor, so you had to find a hill. And then you get older. Like you start moving into this field. So now we are where we want to get to the point where we get out of survival mode. But the survival mode was the foundation of the building. So it's sound. Trusted sound. All right? I can go to the basement anytime I want for solitude and quietness, but I don't look at it as negative anymore because that's the very thing holding the damn building up, by the way.
Yep.
All right? But if I was stuck there, I'd be a prisoner. But I know where the elevator is, so it doesn't matter anymore.
And it's not a bad thing to feel stuck. It's just knowing that you have a next move. That's the most important part, that it's okay. You have a next move.
Yeah.
you know?
If you feel stuck, ask the question, what belief do I have to make them stuck? Mm-hmm. And know this. I mean, you scan, especially if you're a certain age, you had the feeling of stuck before, but you're no longer stuck there. So what makes you think you're going to be stuck here forever? Yeah. You know, people that lose their jobs, oh my God. I'm like, in the history of human beings losing their job, they've always regained another one, unless they just simply gave up and retired. Yeah. But I'm like, well, it's the period in between. I'm like, well, if you can lessen the stress, become more efficient, one is you'll spend less money. Mm-hmm. The other is you're you are likely to find an even better job because you're raising at a higher level. But people are like, how do I get there? I'm like, you're not like, listen, if your mind creates anxiety in the body, don't go back to the mind. Go to the body and breathe. Lower your heart rate. Get your vagus nerve under control. Get yourself to a parasympathetic system. Now you're at a neutral state. Okay, now I'm in a neutral state. How do I vamp this up? Now start breathing deep. So if I'm in a nervous system like anxiety, I want to breathe in like 4, out 8 to 10. Okay, now I feel relaxed. Now I'm going to start going. Now I'm elevating myself up. I'm strong. I'm starting from neutral. Now I want to upregulate. Now, because when I do my breath work with people, I usually take them to the parasympathetic state, get them nice and relaxed. I'm like, okay, now we're going to vamp this thing up. Now I'm going to get the juices flowing. Now I'm going to get the melatonin, the serotonin, and the dopamine's hitting. But I want to get to neutral state when I was out of homeostasis. Now, if I wake up in the morning, I'm not at a neutral state, I just... Okay, now I'm in neutral. Where do I want to go? I want to go higher. How do I get higher? Breathe in deep. Mm-hmm. That's it. So knowing how the body works is what we're here, through oxygen. It's simple. It's always with you. It's free. And then watch what happens. Watch the synchronicity happens. Watch you have more energy at night. Watch you're like, oh shit, I can't remember last time I was sick. Mm-hmm. All these are side effects, right?
Of simply treating the instrument how it was designed to be treated.
Yeah, using it properly, yeah. But if I just kept pushing my car around because it had wheels on it, and every time I put it to the end spot and then I had to push it, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. Like I could push it and I could carry more stuff in my car than if I was just walking. I'm like, okay, this is efficient, right? Because there was a day when there was carts and people just pushed carts, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm like, the car wasn't designed to do that. The car was designed to move itself. Mm-hmm. And our bodies are meant to elevate to a higher level to where they become more efficient. So right now, breathing is like pushing the button. Now, where do we want to go? Mm-hmm. Oh, now I know how this machine operates. All right? So,
I love that.
Yeah, don't just contemplate this. People do it. Like, stop breathing. Because I talk to people that, whatever, I'm like, did you breathe? Like, well, I did a couple times a week. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I'm like, in a couple days a week you did it. Did you feel good? Yes, but then it diminished. I'm like, I get it. I'm like, you drove your car up the block, but then you turned it off and you started pushing it again. Mm-hmm. I'm like, do you not trust? Well, I don't want to run out of gas. I'm like, you're running out of gas pushing it. Gasoline's a lot cheaper than shoes, So, test it out. Like, you just do it once. You feel good. And if you feel good, why wouldn't you keep doing it? It's because we haven't made it.
We get sidetracked.
Well, we don't.
What happens,
Yeah, we don't really believe it was the breathing that made me feel good. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it was because I was talking to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to you and you told me to do it and I was feeling good when I did the breath work. I'm like, no, it had nothing to do with talking to me other than the discussion I may have had with you was a distraction.
And that's just an old habit of us giving the power outside of, or to the authority outside of us. Yep. We're taught that we need to, go to something greater in order to be told what to do, or no. We inherently, from a very early age, have been taught to give our power away, that we need to be told how to feel and told what is right when we actually inherently know this. And when you get very quiet and you go within, you will always know the next move.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important.
Now, we pulled up a video today, right? You want to talk about that?
I think this will be a cool one for us to share. So Frank mentioned this gentleman to me this morning. I had never heard of him. His name is... Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just discovered him yesterday.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of, very synchronistic the way he popped up and into our conversation today. And so Frank and I were like, hey, we should include a clip during our episode today. So this gentleman's name is Benito Massaro. And he's a younger guy. I'm going to start looking into his stuff after, what we saw this morning.
Yeah, and we're going to play him. I really like him. He reminds me of like the Eckhart Tolles or singers. He has a different spin on it, but he's a young guy. Mm-hmm. I get a kick out of my own Fitz's video where, based on how we look at spiritual people, he was doing talks and he has a cigar.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I get the nuance of that, and I really dig it. But he is a young guy. I looked it up. He's been doing this. It seems like he's been at least on YouTube since 2010. So he's been on for a while. So
he's been doing it the last 14 years.
Yeah, so he's been doing it for a while. So, but you could tell in his poise and his character that he understands the work that he's talking about. Me, not so much, but. But yeah, and I was just attracted to it. And I saw listen. Well, he just popped up in my feed yesterday. But listen in. It's this kind of give you a relationship to what we're talking about when we get to these higher levels.
Let's check it out.
Remember yourself. By letting it all be equal and even, by not engaging any further in the energy of changing and altering and fixing, by letting go of that whole responsibility that you have to fix and change yourself all the time, you will most rapidly change yourself. The moment that we think that something is real, the moment we think it is real, we can't detach from it. We can't look at it objectively anymore. We can't relax with it. We can't accept it. We have to either acquire it, or we have to avoid it, or reject it, or we have to fix it. So anything in your life that you assume is solid and real and really, really out there, as if it exists outside of your perception, first of all, it's a mistake in perception, because that's not what's actually going on. All things are happening inside of your soul, inside of your awareness. Your body exists inside of your soul awareness. Your soul doesn't exist inside of your body. Your awareness doesn't exist inside of your body. Your soul awareness is the sphere-like container. It's the space which right now witnesses your physical body. You are that soul consciousness observing your mind and your body. You're looking from the outside in already, you see. And the moment that you reverse that, which most people have, where you think things are outside of yourself and they're real, now it becomes difficult to really rest with them, to really just settle into instant purity, instant freedom, instant not changing anything about it. Just letting it liberate itself through your change in perception. That's all. You're not doing anything. You're just allowing it to be changed in your perception, and voila, the whole thing feels different. The problem is gone. The light is there. The energy flows. You feel happy. You feel good. You feel wise. Not just happy-go-lucky like hippie. No, present, grounded, skillful, wise, perfect timing. Knowing exactly what to do, how to do, when to do it, even though you feel like you're not doing a single thing. You're just enjoying the life stream of God itself by not changing anything. The moment you try to change it, again, remember, the moment you try to enter your perception, enter your world, enter this canvas, enter your painting, and try to change something about it, you are exiting your enlightened state every time you do that. You do that. You are enlightened by nature. You're not ever going to get there with your non-nature. You have to eliminate your assumptions. Settle down. Allow God to enlighten you. Don't try it yourself. It's a painful, long-ass journey. Don't do it. Another tool that can kind of help you with this, so just settle into this natural, liberated state. If you see everything as a thought, it's easier. Even if you don't believe it yet, that's okay. I'm telling you, it is a thought. Everything is a thought. There is no actual matter at the end of the day. In the final analysis, seeing through the whole illusion, it is truly realizing, and you can come to this naturally over time, and it will deepen, and it will deepen, and it will deepen, that what appear to be things, material things, the laws of physics, the objects in the room, your body, the chemical reactions, these are a type of thought in the sense that they exist as thought forms, as intentions, as ideas within the supreme intelligence of intelligence itself, consciousness, the one infinite creator awake to itself. You don't have to believe this. I know it doesn't feel like that when you bump your toe into a rock. It feels like, fuck, this rock is real. And that hurts, and I don't like it. And I got to be more careful about this physical rock next time. I got to devise a plan about this rock. I'm going to have to move this rock soon, make sure it doesn't happen again. And you get into that focal mind. What if, when you hit that rock, you maintained the unchanging awareness, the uninvolved state, the absolutely irresponsible state? And don't worry, you'll be more responsible than you ever were before. Your integrity is going to be optimized. But it is like the most irresponsible state ever, at least in human definitions, because you give up all of it. You give up ownership, fixing, changing, all of it. And you almost feel bad about how good it feels to be absolutely irresponsible. But it feels so good and true that you can't question it, that you're like, holy crap, this is it.
I like that. So this is what we call like the direct route, direct access to it through these concepts. And like what me and Mike are talking about with the breath work is an indirect way to get to the direct way. All right? Because once you get to 30,000 feet, you don't know you're flying. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we have to go through the indirect way to get to the direct way. Or you can just skip it, where you're breathing naturally. And I think that's the moments in time where when you were at the beach and everything was perfectly, you were breathing and you were actually in this place. But then we mistakenly gave it to the beach. Mm-hmm. But when you realize, no, it should be this easy, it should be this effortless. Just like a plane flying at 30,000 feet uses less energy to move 500 miles an hour than anything closer to the surface. But we feel guilty about that because we were taught that if you're not struggling can get you there. But once you get there, you don't need to go back to struggling every day. No. That wouldn't
serve you.
It wouldn't serve you.
It would actually be holding you back. Yeah. To feel any sense of struggle means there's more to be let go of.
Yeah, exactly. It takes, because now your baseline becomes different. So now it's like I'm taking the airplane is taking off from 20,000 feet rather than base level type of thing.
I know what he's saying though when he says like it feels so good you kind of feel bad about it. Like I get that
because the way we think.
Yeah, I've been in that state where I'm like,
if I'm not,
this is like too easy, too simple, too good. Like I wish everyone could experience this. It's a very odd feeling.
Yeah, and it's true because I came from that school of thought. I remember working out, especially the type of stuff I've done with very aggressive stuff, boxing and football and wrestling and lacrosse and all this very aggressive stuff, right? And so when I would go into like the working out, so I started lifting weights probably in my 20s, and I remember doing these workouts and I would do them for a while and stop because they were very rigorous and hard and stuff, and I wasn't used to it. And then there was a point where I'm like, F it, I'm going to fully go in. So I picked up this workout, and I did this for like a year, where I was doing like 15 to 20 reps per set with 30-second rest in between, and it was about a 45 minutes to an hour workout.
Damn,
and
that's
it was
intense.
burning me out. And then one day I go to this new gym, and I start talking to this guy named Jason. I tell him, he's like, you did that for a year? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, why? Like, I don't know.
Why?
And the point I'm going to make is like, based on what I was experiencing and the result, like I wasn't gaining any more muscle. Not that was the true reason I want to go there feel good, but I was leaving the gym exhausted, but I was willing to put up with it. All of a sudden, I sort of augmented my workouts, and I listened to my body, and okay, I'm tired. Well, let's elevate the tiredness and start changing it. All of a sudden, within 1 year, I gained more gains in the whole first half of my life lifting weights because I understood what was happening. I knew how to, if you're going to do 20 reps, you better get your body ready for 20 reps. Like if you're leaving the gym tired and you still have the whole day to go, what are you doing wrong?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And what it was is I was pushing through. The only thing I have going for me is thank God I didn't get injured, because I could have, because my field of energy wasn't proper. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do 20 reps, shouldn't do this, but you should understand the field of energy you're at. And then, do I want to lift to a higher level, or do I like feeling here and feeling this? So now when I go to the gym, it's always comfortable, even when I'm working my ass off to other people. I'm like, no, I'm in a comfortable state. My breathing's better. I'm utilizing the energy in my body better. And because of that, there is a result that I'm no longer holding on to that actually works. So I'm stronger, whatever I want to happen. Like in my business, I'm making more money because of that. But it's effortless now. Mm-hmm. Where when I was putting effort in, I couldn't make enough money. I couldn't because, just spending more time and in my mind, it's like, I made all this money, but now I need to make more. I have to keep going. And it was exhausting myself to the point where I either have to give up this business or I have to turn something around. And it was my perception that I turned around. I'm like, oh, okay. But the guilt of not doing that, I had to overcome, like you said, and it felt weird. And all of a sudden, now I'm making more money with less effort. Mm-hmm. Why is it less effort? Doesn't mean I'm not there 10 hours a day. Mm-hmm. It means I'm not exhausting myself in 10 hours, and some days I'm not there at all, and still working. So it's how I rearrange my energy field, rearrange how I look at things at a higher level to where there's very little resistance, or the resistance that's there is enjoyable rather than fighting me. Yeah. And that there's a direct path, and that's what he's talking about here.
That's exactly what.
But sometimes we have to go through the pain and struggle. But the thing is, I'm going through something. I know it's going to benefit me to a direction, and the benefit of working out that hard maybe showed me that I didn't need to. But I did it anyway, so it was worth it. It really was. Because if I never did it, I would just given up on the whole project of working out. Fine, this is not working. I'm like, no, something's got to work out. And by synchronistic value, I ran into this guy at the gym who was, that looked at me and was like, why did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. He was in the program.
Well, like Benito was just sharing, it's a mistaken perception. That's all. That's pretty much what it boils down to. Yeah. Is we have these mistakes in perception that, I need to do this because this is the only way I can experience that.
Yeah. So me doing the outward expression of the 15 to 20 reps rigorously, opposed to I work out my wife. We work actually act together on Sundays. We do the same. We do like all upper body. Mm-hmm. And she was like, how many reps did you do? I'm like, I don't count until I get to a point where I could feel the muscle, and then I'll stop breathing in heavy to release the lactic acid, and then I count 3. All right. So I don't count because I'm no longer outward. Mm-hmm. I'm inward more than I'm still directed outward to a degree, but not as much. So it's how I feel when I'm lifting weight, not how much I'm lifting, not how many reps I did. Mm-hmm. Because the object is to feel good and, to get a pump. I'm like, if I went 10 more, it would have killed it. Mm-hmm. So now my focus is on the counting rather than the mind-body connection. So I'm lifting weights. I want the mind-body connection, not how many reps did I do. Mm-hmm. Like if you want to count. But I'm not going to count because it'll take me away. So even when I'm breathing and counting, I stop counting and just feel the oxygen. That's why I like listen to it with Sandy, because he does the counting for me. I don't need to think about it. And when I have to breathe in, that's why when I do breath work with people, I can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. Because I have to keep them in cadence, and I'm okay with that. But when I try to do it, I'm like, I can't be breathing. Okay, 3 more. Yep. Now I can't even hold my breath so I just realized, okay, I'm going to surrender. I'm on the other side of this now. I'm going to get into a different cadence and keep them moving and not do it. And that's why I like the guided stuff. Or when I'm doing it myself, I may count the first couple times, but then I stop counting. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why aren't you counting? Because I know what it feels like. It feels good. That's it.
And it does feel good. And when it feels good, you know that that's the right path. And that's a thing too. Like, allow yourself to trust yourself. We've been so bamboozled our whole lives that am I allowed to feel good? Have I deserved to feel good? Have I done enough? Have I accomplished enough to allow myself to rest or be at peace? And that's been our problem this whole time. And so that's what Massimo, or Massaro, is sharing here, is this state of neutrality. Like, is it this? Is it that? Well, get neutral. And then let's decide which direction is going to, be the best, for the path you're traveling.
Yeah, and if you listen to people like him and you hear the message, and at the moment you hear it, like, okay, I get that, I understand it. But then all of a sudden you drop from it. It's not that the information's poor, it's just that you're trying to retrieve the information from a lower place where the information isn't needed down there. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I want to stay there. I'm like, well, keep working up to that level. That's it. That's just showing you. Now you have to know how this organism works to get to that level. Where someone like him is talking about it because he's living it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know him personally. I could sense that he has this way about him. I don't know if he's a raving lunatic inside, but something tells me he wouldn't be able to teach it and talk about it at this level, because I've heard a lot of people talk about it and wouldn't be living it. All right. But what he's showing us, it's possible. It is possible to live this brilliant life with very to no resistance. And when I say no resistance that's working with us, not against us. Mm-hmm. And stay very close to that place where you're not going from here to here, you're just going from here to here to here in different variables. Like, your baseline changes to where that's not even a problem. Mm-hmm. And when this resonates, know that you're in that place when you listen to it. Now, enact it in your day-to-day life, because listen to it, even listen to Mike and I, can be a form of distraction. But that distraction can help you know it's possible, but then you have to exercise it. Just like if I was hitting the heavy bag for many years but never stepped into the ring, well, the unfortunate thing is the heavy bag doesn't punch back. Mm-hmm. But when I step in the ring, now I have a viable individual that's conscious themselves. My bag wasn't. If I punched the bag, it moved to where I wanted to move so I could look really good. But once something punches you back, it's a whole another game. And that's where we live. We live in the world, not in some meditation room, not on my couch. Yeah. I still hit the heavy bag to get me warmed up, so when I get in the ring, I'm ready. So yeah, I still meditate, still breath work, but I tend to do it less and less in the formal ways of doing it, where I'm doing it while I'm moving, while I'm in the ring, so to speak. And I'm like, that's where the fun is.
That's where it becomes real.
Yeah, and then I realize, okay, I don't have to run home and light a candle and turn the lights out and have a quiet place. I'm like, I could do this on the subway in New York City. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow. So then when I do go home, that's just a treat. That's just an extra nugget behind it.
Yeah, and you have more gratitude for that.
Yeah.
That safe, comfortable place.
Yeah.
And you start to appreciate and look at things with, a new, fresh outlook of, gratitude, love, and it's there. That's when everything really starts changing, because we've been taught that everything's just bullshit and how much it sucks. And no. It doesn't suck. Staying down here, staying in the third dimension, the really low levels of, anger, hatred, division, judgment. That's what you hate. And the reason it's to get you to, it's showing you that there's somewhere else.
And the reason we hate that is because your natural state is here.
Yeah, we know that there's something.
Yeah, it's not like you have to build your natural state. You have to remove the things that are blocking the natural state. Just like if you had a plastic bag around your head, it's not the level of oxygen and the inability for your body to take in oxygen. It's the barrier between your body and the oxygen that's creating the problem. Mm-hmm. But your natural state is here at 30,000 feet.
And you know this inherently.
Yeah, well, you do. It's because if your natural state was the basement, you would have absolutely no problem with the basement.
Exactly. You'd be totally comfortable.
That's it. So understand, it's not about adding something to your life. It's about removing stuff in your life. So it's you breathe in. How easy is it to remove carbon dioxide? It's a lot more effort to breathe in.
Yep.
Right? That takes nothing. So, like in the last podcast, we talk about this, the fall of humanity and each individual. Not that it's just October fall, but the season in the way we look at secular calendar-wise. But it is the fall of humanity, and the fall of humanity is letting go of the old concepts that were holding you down. And when you let go of those, you rise up. You don't fall, you rise up. Just like letting go of a sandbag from a hot air balloon. You go higher. And see how many things you can let go, because you don't need them up there. Mm-hmm. You need less fuel up there. But you must go there to know that.
I was going to say, give it a try.
And that's who you are.
That's the most important.
You'll find yourself up there, not down in the basement. You can't find yourself. Yeah.
Your most natural state.
Yeah, it is.
Try it. Let us know your thoughts. We love hearing your feedback, guys. Especially as we dive more into the nuance of the breath and just learning. Wow, I can utilize this instrument. To guide myself, to go in the direction I want to go. Use your instrument, start with the breath. And then from there,
then these concepts are more
they're
tangible.
Not so elusive.
No, they're more tangible. You could see, this is where I was born. Mm-hmm. Children, we knew this, not intellectually, but we instinctively knew it. And somehow we were talked out of it. So what? Who cares? That was a catalyst to go deeper, perhaps. Yeah.
I like that.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys for joining us for this week's episode of Perspective Shift. Please, please, please like, follow, subscribe, and shoot us a message at perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com. If you have any questions or you want to share your story, we love hearing from you guys, and we'll be back next week.
All right. Much love and peace out.
Thanks, guys.